Today, it's with Fjungless the Fingless Frog. Fjungless the Fingless Frog. He's not like a dog. Doo-doo-doo. Fjungless the Fingless Frog.
So I've been thinking about AI as a host.
Yeah.
But it's not gonna be any less random.
It's true.
Right, okay.
I haven't told you about Fjungless the Fingless Frog, have I? No, I haven't.
You can save it for the episode.
I'm not sure it's that interesting, but it is kind of weird.
We'll do it in the outro. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're listening to the Adventuring Party for the third week of December 2023. This week, you're in luck as the party discuss fortune and failure in our games. The Adventuring Party, so some tabletop and radio gaming the Irish way.
Okay, everyone got their dice, D6?
Yeah.
All right, so roll 1d6.
4.
I got a 2.
I got breath.
What?
Breath?
I rolled
you rolled a dragon. All right, I like that one. That one wins. Okay.
It's equivalent to a 4, but I checked.
Fair enough. Yeah, but it's a special 4,
Yeah,
so
it's a special 4.
I'm going to declare Hida the winner, and you get to do the intro for this episode.
Welcome to the party. I'm Owen.
I'm Savage Mick.
Wait, I rolled 4, you rolled a 2, so it was me next.
Yeah, so Hida gets to do the intro. Oh, you decided on your own special set of rules.
I got a 4. It's on the dice.
Look, that's just the dice. It's the, there's other things that factor into how this is going to play out. Sorry, wait a second. Hida, what's this episode about?
This episode is about that flighty temptress luck. Specifically, when you get lucky and when you don't.
And when you roll a 2, you got to make your own luck.
Basically, more or less. So today we're going to be chatting a little bit about luck and the reasons why RNG exists in the game design space and is how people respond to the notion of luck, good luck, bad luck, and so on.
Sulking and cheering for the most part.
What's your luck like, Mick?
It has been preternaturally good on occasion, but not something you should rely on. It shows up here and there. What can I say? I've got all my fingers and toes.
That's all we can hope for, right? Scar, how do you feel your luck is?
Probably, I'd say fairly lucky. No major illnesses or, car accidents or anything of the like. So, I'd say I've a pretty charmed life.
Luck is the residue of design. I'll put it that way. Luck is the residue of design.
Abe Lincoln said that, I think.
A number of people are claimed to have said that one. Napoleon, and there's a writer as well who's claimed to have come up with it first. And also the dad on Everybody Loves Raymond. And all the greats fall back to that one. What it kind of comes down to for me is I've been playing Pathfinder 2nd Edition on Foundry, and we installed a mod that tracks everybody's dice rolls. So there's kind of about 400 D20 rolls on average per player are currently in the system. And because we're rolling digitally, it's mostly worked out to be pretty solid bell curve distribution, sort of. But in reality, because it's a D20, it's linear. But most people's, kind of mean roll is 11, which is what it should be.
Computer checks out, yeah.
Yeah, or 10. So we're good for the most part. It's going to tell us, you're rolling kind of on average. One player is rolling a little lower than others. And we just check it every so often. So it's one to kind of keep track of. So on average, if you're in a perfect environment, with you roll enough dice, for most people, your luck's going to work out as roughly even. But you have to roll enough dice. So how important luck in as a game is often a function of how much you're relying on luck. If you don't engage in a lot of dice rolls very often, you're going to magnify the effects of good and bad luck. If you roll dice a lot, it'll even out. Though it may not even out on important stuff as opposed to slightly less important stuff.
Yeah. You could get 37 on your lockpick check to just open one window and sneak in, but then you roll a 3 on the stealth check to, not get shot by 27 guards.
And the real luck factor there was, which window do you pick? Oh, I picked the barrack room. Oops.
Insufficient recon. So I'm putting that one
There
down.
you go.
What it comes down to is why is luck in games? It depends. If you decide to play a competitive game, you can play games without luck. Most people will tell you, "Oh, this is so great," if you're good at the game. And if you're not good at the game, it starkly reveals your inadequacies as a person, as somebody better at the game trounces you. If you remove all luck from games, like purely mental games, the more skilled player wins. And that can be hard to take. So we often conceal that and muddy the waters a little bit by introducing an element of luck. This is why Magic has Mana Screw and Mana Flood. It has them in the game because it enables a less skilled player to beat a more skilled player on occasion. Because otherwise, if you play games without luck, which there have been a couple of card games made without luck, the like you pick your opening hand or something, it can get very stark. It can get very rough. The Versus CCG, which came out, got rid of mana at all, resources. Any card was a resource. And then the random thing became, did you draw your drop on curve? Did you drop your 2-drop on turn 2? Did you drop your 4-drop on turn 4? And they put in a bunch of fixing for that. And then the game became the better player won. And no one could handle it. Nobody could handle it. It's too intellectually devastating to be beaten by a better person. It's like you got an ego about yourself. Yeah, this guy's just better than me. And some people cannot take that. They need the cocoon of luck so they can complain about bad luck, when in reality they were outplayed by someone superior. And that's a lot of the reason why you have luck in competitive games. Now, in cooperative games, what's luck doing in there? Mostly it's there to kind of arbitrate activities that the GM hasn't decided how they'll go, and occasionally it's to generate some story fodder. Then X happened and we had to roll with it. And there's interesting consequences to what if we fail, and driving games forward, failing forward and stuff, and having failure create interesting situations rather than boring situations. Because missing is boring. You want other stuff to happen as a result of failure. And for some things in combat, it's actually quite difficult to do. Outside of combat, you can throw complications at players and kind of, to a certain extent, riff with them about what happens. And some players really enjoy that. Other players find it incredibly frustrating that you're trying to kind of sort of edit this story together when what they really want to do is win. So yeah, I have a lot of kind of complex thoughts about what luck and the expression of luck means, and it means different things in different places. And it's a difficult one in games. There's a piece of advice that occasionally comes up, which is say yes or roll the dice. And I think that's bad advice because it presupposes that if a player suggests a course of action, you can't go, that's not going to work. You are not going to walk into the Vatican and propose an argument to the Pope that gets him to disband the Catholic Church and give all their money to you. It's not going to happen. It's not roll. But the player goes in there, go and roll natural 20. Ha, you have to do it. And you're a bad GM if you say no. And I'm like, I am not being emotionally blackmailed by you, you lunatic. It does not work. You have to be able to say that, you know?
I think my version of that has always been, well, not always, but born over years, is my version would be that you should never roll a dice unless you're willing to accept all the possibilities in the dice. If you roll a dice and you're not ready for that dice to come up bump kiss or amazing broad roll, then the mistake was asking for the roll in the first place. But then we might be getting into philosophies over who gets to pick when you roll as a separate issue, possibly something we don't really have time for this week.
Yeah, well, no, maybe we've got a little bit of time. I mean, the whole concept of luck, as Owen has pointed out at the start, is kind of, it's not so much an outcome of statistics. You get a group of players together, or they all engage in random activity with a a spectrum of outcomes, and it kind of over time evens out that they're all performing the same way. But in the group, certainly someone looks left and goes, Greg's pretty lucky. Things just seem to work out. And that other comment about luck being the residue of design, I think we have this narrative ape sense of events that tells us that some things are lucky, and it comes down to when when a role is called for, the consequence of the role, as you said, and being able to perhaps roll with, not to attempt to pun there, but roll with the outcome to perhaps reshape even a negative into a positive by pulling in wider factors. The old saw being you make your own luck, and every defeat is an opportunity, that kind of thing. Certainly, the cooperative game side of things, how lucky or unlucky can you possibly be when everybody wants to show up next week and play? And it's a brave and perhaps a fundamentalist games master who goes, well, them's with the dice, campaign's over, bye bye. There's always this kind of there's always this Olympian pantheon looking down, going, well, that didn't quite work out, but we really do want Jason to fight the Titan in the next episode, so we're going to blow his ship off course, but really it's on course. What responsibility does a GM have towards the campaign, or towards the players, or towards themselves, to allow luck to have its way, or to simply take any and every outcome of the dice as a narrative beat, an indication of tone, rather than an arbiter of fate?
What you're saying sort of reminds me of what Owen started off with the saying that luck allows bad players to feel that they're still part of the game, and how removing luck makes skill a more important factor. I just like to point out that no one plays versus anymore, and Magic the Gathering, despite all the horrible, horrible things that WotC been doing to it, is still the biggest card game around.
Yeah, no one could take. Well, there were other problems with versus, but very few people could take the naked reveal of their own inadequacies.
But the part of overcoming your inadequacy is fighting against your own, staying in the game to try and get better.
Yes, however, ego's a tough thing to overcome. Sometimes, number one, and number two, you have to be within effectively a standard deviation of somebody else's skill to learn things from being beaten up by them. If someone is so much better than you, it may not matter what you do, and you may not understand why you lost. So you need to be within a certain amount of skill to have it. Like if you went into Titanfall now, Scar, right? And you decided I'm going to start. Have you ever played Titanfall PvP?
I did take a little bit of Titanfall 2, and oh yes, no, I was absolutely just I was I was basically the grunts that run around run by the AI, but I was worth more points.
Yeah. Now the problem is there. People have still been playing Titanfall 2. They took down the PvP for years. They kept playing it. I know what's happened to those people. They're not human anymore. Whatever they were, or whatever they used to be, they're not that anymore. And they brought PvP back up, and people got to meet that ecosystem of people again. And it was a sobering experience, I'm given to understand. It's like, these people have been playing it for years while the rest of us have not. Oh dear. Oh dear. I didn't even see him. I still can't see him. I'm dead, but I can't see him.
But I just think that the idea of a game designer who has to seriously consider: do I want skill to shine through all this, or will I put in luck to soften the experience and make it work for a larger group of people? That's very similar to what a GM has to go through when the dice they roll in front of everyone and say, "Yeah, Tiamat has killed everyone in this universe. Oh dear." That GM then has to make decisions on whether this dice should be allowed to
To decide the fate of the universe, essentially, on one roll.
Yes. Oh, but I mean, you can argue that again by this principle. If he wasn't happy with a dice deciding the fate of the universe, that he should not have rolled that the DM should not have rolled those dice. But once you accept that and you roll it and it happens, are you honor bound to make that ride? Have you made your own bed and now must sleep in it?
You're not obligated to do anything, number one. Number two, a 1 in 20 roll is not that unlikely. So the universe should not turn on it. We are not clapping seals playing to a audience on TikTok. Just because someone rolls a 20 does not mean sense upends itself, There's limits. It's a 1 in 20 chance. It's not that uncommon. If you said, there's a lotto, there's a 5% chance of winning $1 billion, I would be like, I will enter that lotto, sir. I will enter that lotto. That is not that hard to win. So if it is a 20, it's fun to go 20, oh snap, and wiggle your arms and swivel your hips and stuff. I don't know. But, we should be at least a little bit, it's a good roll, but it's not a inconceivable roll. Roll $1 billion 4 times in a row on a 1D billion, and maybe I'll consider going, okay, well, that's pretty unlikely. Fair enough,
Okay, so this brings us then to when and where those rolls matter. And while 1 20 roll or 1 success roll on a die is a matter of no importance, anyone who's got an even middling grasp of statistics can tell you that. But when you get on those accumulators, that's when we can really start to talk about times when people sit up and go, hold on a second. If he rolls something like that again, then what's going to happen? We see this with exploding dice, which is a popular mechanic. And we also see it when a poor GM, without really having thought it all the way through, or simply reaching for some outcome to assign to a die roll, goes, right, okay, if you do that twice, then improbable things happen. And then they do, as often as not. I think we can all remember times in our own gaming experience when the die have come up snake eyes, more than once. And we then, and usually because it is the more improbable thing that was proposed, that goes off and consequences fly. Now, here's a question. Do we like luck? Or do we like it sometimes?
That I'm afraid the answer is definitely going to come down to sometimes. I'm not saying that people want to be lucky all the time. There are obviously going to be situations where a person can accept bad luck, but they are going to be idiosyncratic reasons and probably situation dependent. Someone might be okay with their character dying in a heroic last stand against, some form of demon lord coming through a thing, and accidentally being beheaded because the GM forgot what a Vorpal sword was. They might be accepting something like that, but then if it's exploding dice and a goblin pokes him and he then explodes, sending most of his viscera into the upper atmosphere because that's how exploding dice work. A different type of player may be accepting of that outcome than Mr. Heroic Last Stand.
Why? Hold on. I didn't ask you if we liked good luck. I asked you if we liked luck. And you kind of half answered the question like, yes, sometimes, because I think you do have to sort of have perhaps a stoic absurdist outlook if you're going to embrace it. You have to be willing to explore possibilities where you say, okay, well, I will suggest that my character does something outlandish, and let's see how it works out. And knowing that it could be amazing, but you could fall flat in your face. And there's maybe the thing to do here is to foster a sense of detachment and joy, depending on what the outcome is, to be flexible in how we look at luck. And also, I suppose, to be generous towards our fellow players and GMs and allow that good or bad luck is just another beat in the play session and isn't necessarily, it doesn't define them as a bad player or, well, you shouldn't have tried that, or, well, that was never going to work. It's like, yeah, well, maybe it will. And if it does turn out to be outlandishly lucky or unlucky, then give them the spotlight for that moment. Let it play out. I suppose the question then, for me at least, is where do we draw that line? Like, where do we look for games that have lots of mechanics that embrace it, or do we wait for the arbiter of our fates, the GM, to allow for it, or do we insist that well, by the rules, that's an incredibly lucky thing, that's a very unlikely thing that happened, therefore something very special should come about because of it.
Ultimately, I roll dice in RPGs because I can't be bothered physics simulating the universe. And dice are my shortcut to kind of going, okay, there's a random chance that this doesn't work for other factors. Let's roll that random chance. That I'm not narrating everything. The players aren't telling me what they're going to do, and then I narrate what happens. There's an element of, yeah, you're not 100% sure this works. And that's what makes planning and reacting interesting. Because if I can just say this happens and this happens and this happens and this happens, GM goes, okay, yep, that's that.
Cool story, bro.
Whereas having the element of dice allows the theory that something might go wrong and you have to build in some backup and it increases tension. It's very boring when I could just say, we do this, then we do this, then we do this, then we do this, then we do this. And the GM goes, yep, that all succeeds. Okay, cool. Good afternoon, guys. Let me just crumple up the scenario and throw it in the bin. You finished that one? Good job, everybody. You want the little bit of uncertainty that things might go wrong. Every heist film has a bit where there's a twist and something goes wrong. That twist is vital to heist films being interesting, and in fact, heist sessions being interesting. Because if the only thing interesting that happens during the heist session is the planning, you should have just after the planning session goes, okay, there we go, that's it done. Why actually play out the session if everything is going to go to plan? You then, as the GM, have to create stuff to go wrong. But if there's dice failures or in bad luck, that is your prompt for something to go wrong. Because in a heist, at least one thing should go wrong. That's just how heists work. Players expect one thing to go wrong. And then how you get around it is the kind of the smart bit and the bit that makes them lets them feel clever at the end. So I roll dice because I'm not going to perfectly simulate the universe. I'm sorry, I'm not. I have to use my brain for other things.
Like thinking of cool puns.
Yeah, absolutely. Not terribly good puns, but something like that.
Oh, you've had some singers. Right. Okay. Look, what else? What else can we say here? How about what's GM's responsibility towards manufacturing bad luck? If you do have very competent players who are displaying system mastery to the extent that it doesn't really matter what they roll, they've tweaked their characters, that damage output is consistent, they don't look to do things that they're pretty sure they're not going to do, so they're making good rolls, they're making rolls that they're consistently passing, if and they're taking actions, they're narrating actions to bring down those difficulty numbers to within the reasonable bounds, then is there a sense that the GM has to artificially inject that kind of heist-like bad luck, have someone kick in the door that otherwise wouldn't have been there?
I mean, if you're into a situation where the players can basically take mechanical control of the game and just sort of build a character so that luck isn't a factor, I don't think you're in necessarily the same type of game as many people are. Like that sounds to me like the high end Pathfinder where it's more about iteration and keeping good head of tactics and anticipating what counter tactics GM is going to use on you. I mean, there are some games that Fate comes to mind where the GM is sort of offering people, free boosts on other skills if they take an interesting complication or basically choose to fail a roll. But as some people say, that feels very artificial. Some players are happy to be the engineers of their own downfalls, but you're stepping out of the province of luck at that point. You are engaged in deep story construction where it's no longer about random outcomes. It's about negotiation between player and GM about story and tactical result.
Well, yes, because so often in narratives, the luck is contrived, both good and bad. I mean, those star-crossed lovers, if only she had arrived at the train station 5 minutes earlier. It's entirely a device of interesting narratives that good and bad luck play their part. But no, I don't think GMs or anyone who's telling a story should rely on the system to provide the consequential, the important moments of luck. If it's within your power to do so, then you've got to. What I'm trying to figure out here is what I'm asking, I suppose, is how broad should those brushstrokes be? How willing should we be to accept that we're playing within a system? There is a simulationist aspect to this, but for things to go a certain way, then yes, it was just kind of bad luck that the ambassador didn't make it to that meeting, and the consequences of that propel an adventure. Should players get upset about the idea that, well, certain moments of ill or good luck are contrived by a narrative universe? Is that even a fair question to ask?
I don't know if we should be conflating like mechanical luck, where you're rolling dice or drawing cards or pulling tokens out of a bag, versus in-universe plot luck, where the universe conspires to give the protagonists an interesting life. Something is that can be lucky in universe can, and in many cases is, a contrivance out of universe, where a GM has decided, or players have decided, depending on the game, that let's go. Reality's unrealistic. Sometimes the ambassador's car is 5 minutes late to the train station or whatever.
Turns out she was the ambassador. I think the conflation is what makes gaming interesting, or at least so that outcomes aren't set as just narrative tropes or just random die roll outcomes. It's I think it's the combination of the two. That gestalt is kind of where I think this stuff kind of lives. Why did we decide that episode 777 was going to be the episode about luck?
Because that's the symbol of Vegas, famous for their slightly doctored odds on their slot machines, but according to state guidelines. So, it might not be fair, but at least it's legal.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting way of thinking about it. It's telling that we have these kind of narratives around luck, and because we engage in narrative play, I think we should accept. Yeah, we should definitely look for the places where we interlock system-based luck with what could be narrative lucky contrivance, I guess.
You bring me to mind of stuff like the Powered by the Apocalypse games, where they are very much based around a particular narrative framework. Each one is trying to embody the tropes of their network, whether it be the Fallout-esque, not entirely realistic post-apocalyptics of Mad Max, and you see in Apocalypse World, or Passion de la Passion, which is a mechanical network about the melodrama of a Mexican soap opera. And these are using their mechanical framework and the range of outcomes for them to reinforce those tropes in things. Whenever you roll a dice in a Power of the Apocalypse game, the maximum outcome, the critical outcome, which is meant to be rare, but is again something that you'll see in your narrative framework for that game, and then you'll have the middle state, which is where you tend to have the dilemmas, where a character is forced to choose between what they want to do, but also what the appropriate penalties for to earn. Well, like what is in this genre, what is required to earn your average result. And then you'll have, if you get a failure, the GM has a list of specific hard moves to do. So, and they're not supposed to just make up what happens. Like you might, in since you have a list of this is appropriate for the genre, choose one of these and interpret it to the situation you have. All three possible outcomes, whichever of them happens is determined by the dice, by mechanical luck, but they are meant to feed into the narrative luck, as you might want to say, of the game that you're running. That's probably a very good modern example, but there are a lot of examples of games which don't have that same things. I keep thinking back to stuff like D20 Modern or its 5th edition equivalent, Everyday Heroes, where they're using the same wild, bombastic D20 system as D&D, but that might work for some kind of kung fu action movie, but it might not work for a grim and gritty detective story as much because you're using your swingy D20. There's this thing where the experts could fail and the bumbling idiots can succeed, and that can really undermine the tone of your genre.
Right, good point. Because as you point out, some we like the happenstance of physics and ill timing give us slapstick, which is very sort of simulationist in some ways. But you've got to put the banana peel there, and it is highly expected that lots of lucky and unlucky things will happen as Buster Keaton moves through the frame. Whereas in a taut political drama, random chance is probably only going to pop up once in a car crash, and the rest of the time it is maneuver and astute kind of weighing up of your enemies and allies. So I think I'd like to go. I'd just pose the question one more time as we wrap up the episode and go around the table. Do we like luck, or more specifically, are there instances? Can you think of an instance where you like it in a game, and maybe one where you don't? Ada?
I like luck in a game that's quick because if I can win and lose fast because of luck, that's fine. I'm not bothered. If I'm gonna lose because I get unlucky 3 hours into a game, I'm gonna get very because that was a lot of time spent getting lucky. I'm okay with a game that plays about half an hour and there's a big luck factor on it. That's fine. That's grand. It usually means more people are willing to play because it's a bit lucky, it's a bit random. But like one that takes 3 hours and it's decided on a single dice roll, no, please no. Which will just annoy me because I can do everything right up to that point, and then up from the last roll. Well,
Good assessment, yeah.
there's another thing about luck, just in terms of you occasionally need to, if your player is having a really bad run of luck, throw them a bone of some kind, be it a meta currency or being something else, because it really feels sucky to be failing and failing and failing because you're just rolling like poo.
That is one of the things I'm most impressive about Power by Apocalypse is stuff like one of the biggest sources of XP in a Power by Apocalypse game is failing your rolls. And, it's to encourage players to embrace their failures, and just live within the genre where the assumption is you're going to have these failures and you're going to get better because of them. And that's why you have this sort of dramatic system and set up for a well-written Power by Apocalypse. That kind of fuel of saying the successes are appropriate, but also the failures are also appropriate, and the blow is softened so that you not even softened, but like the blow, taking the hit encourages you to stay in the game to try the next swing, as it were.
Excellent. I tend to be, I would, on the face, would say, yeah, it looks great. It provides some interesting outcomes. But having listened to the two of you, I'm not so sure I'd remain in that stance. So I'm saying short, snappy games, lots of luck is fine. It's interesting to kind of throw a lot of bits and pieces around and see how the dominoes fall. When you have to invest a lot of time in a game, of say a board game or a card game or something like that, you don't want to see it all turn on a die. But when it comes to the longer narrative forms, I suppose what I hope for from luck, both contrived narrative luck, and systemic random luck, is, I guess, surprise. I'll always go back to the Genesis system, the one they used for Star Wars. I've always liked that kind of multimodal die pool where the outcomes can be good and bad, and then the surprising thing is interpretation. There's a sort of a tea leaves aspect to it. It has a pretty robust mechanical outcomes as well. You can look at the die for attacks and things and go, oh, okay, we've got this outcome. But when it comes down to sort of casting the die for a decision, a waypoint, and going, well, things have gone slightly wrong in the short term, but ultimately great. It does allow, I think, for both the players and the GM to reflect on what surprise does this result hold? Both good and ill. And that's probably for me what I look for when I consider luck. It's not so much that I want a random outcome so much as I want
A surprising outcome.
something unexpected, yeah. Something interesting, yeah.
And what then again, you're talking about how many dice rolls are you going to be doing in a given session? Because you might say, there's dozens of dice rolls in the session. Well, you spread it over 5 players at the table, and all the stuff the GM's doing, and then maybe one player is only rolls like 5 dice the entire game, and whilst another player rolls like 20, they're going to feel differently about the occasional 1 showing up or occasional 20 showing up or whatever the equivalent of your system is. I guess where I'm going for this is like you're going to have to pay attention to what kind of luck your game gives, and if that luck is appropriate to the game you want. Like if you have a group of mix at your table and they want surprise in each roll, then a system like Genesis, where it's designed to make every roll interesting, you're only going to have a couple of rolls each for each player each game, because each one is each roll is juicy with interpretation and potential outcome. Uh, that's very different from a very mechanistic Pathfinder-esque game where each player is going to be rolling 24 times in the session, and they're going to be able to just kind of forget the ones and the 20s because the average is what's going to be important, and the large number. Each roll is basically just a box mash back and forth to try to set up the next round and make the next set of actions a little bit different, but in terms of the flow of the entire game, maybe isn't going to be, in the individual dice rolls, maybe not going to, change the session. It's just going to change the next few seconds.
Okay, well, that's probably enough high-minded and philosophical reflection on the chattering of dice, the turning of cards. This has been episode 777. We've been very lucky to have you all along. If you want to increase your chances of being lucky in turn and engaging with very random but like-minded people, then I suggest you roll on over to our Discord. You'll find a link somewhere in the show notes or attached to a tweet or in the episode description. But I'd highly encourage you to show up and share your stories of luck, either good or ill, luck that nearly ended a campaign or saved it. And we are barreling towards the end of the year. We've got a Christmas special coming up. We hope you'll tune in. It'll be extra long as we'll be taking a little break into the new year just to give ourselves a chance to unwrap our presents, play some board games, read some RPGs, and maybe crack some foil on some new card games. But in the meantime, this party's over.
Thanks for listening to the Adventure Party. You can find show notes and links to things we've mentioned at www.theadventuringparty.net and on our Facebook page. You can leave comments there, or talk to our Twitter account at AdventurePTY, or you can record a voice message at www.speakpipe.com/theadventuringparty. We can also be contacted directly by email at party@theadventuringparty.net. If you'd like to be in touch with the party all the time, come join our Discord server, link in the show notes. The Adventuring Party is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share Alike version 3 license.
Right, now, Gilbert the obnoxious squirrel, or whatever it was. No.
Fiongle the Fingus Frog.
Fiongless the Fingless Frog. So what happened was we're having a college open day today, and there was a vice principal sent out a mail talking about, and of course the color for this year is green, which is news to me, and that ties in with our mascot, Fiongless the Fingless Frog, who I don't know if someone just has made him up or anything, but there was a bunch of frog-shaped balloons around the building. There was a bunch of green banners. Everybody was wearing green. I felt like I was in a David S. Pumpkins bit.
And so it's a regular Finglas mass.
Yeah, so I started making up a lyrics for a TV show, which would be Fiongless the Fingless Frog. And thinking about, like, there could be a book cover, Fiongless the Fingless Frog and the Science Open Day, where it's him running away from a mad scientist with a scalpel who's going to try to cut him open. And, Fiongless the Fingless Frog, he's our friend instead of a dog. Fiongless the Fingless Frog, he's a nice kid who would never lead a mob.
I'm getting horrible flashbacks to Space Marine and Mage, and I don't think we want to sing that song.
Oh, Space Marine and Mage, Space Marine and Mage. The other one is a gun, the other is fun. Oh, Space Marine and Mage. Wikipedia, I'm pretty sure, has excised that page.
Oh, they cut that. They cut us quick there. They cut us quick.
Yeah.